Should you buy Batman Arkham Asylum in 2021? Batman Arkham Asylum blew everyone away back in 2009, completely changing how the industry looks at superhero games and creating a new standard far above anything that came before it. I don't think anyone can actually argue against that, but is Batman Arkham Asylum worth buying in 2021? Over 10 years later, is it really that great when competing with games like Spider-Man and the Arkham sequels naturally? We will be talking narrative and gameplay. Thank you all for the support over the last few weeks while I've been ill. We hit 3,000 subscribers and it's only been 8 months. That is just incredible. Thank you so much. Batman Arkham Asylum jumps straight into the action, wasting no time. Arkham Asylum sets up all of its villains like Joker, Killer Croc and Harley Quinn and more in less than an hour, so it's immediately clear to me that the developers respect the player's time, and that, even if it's an average experience, is not one where I feel like I'm wasting my time. As well as respecting our time, Rocksteady respects their IP, so many of the characters actually have a decent amount of screen time, and the characters that get less screen time like Killer Croc and Bane have the most memorable missions for me personally, especially that Killer Croc mission, but I'll get into that in the gameplay section. If you're expecting a full-blown Gotham City, if you haven't played the franchise before, this is not that. It is all set in Arkham Asylum that's wonderfully crafted and changes over the course of the game. Each part of the island is sort of dedicated to specific villains at specific times, especially one villain that basically takes over the island. And I think it's pretty obvious that that would be Poison Ivy. The world that you will be exploring is thematic and well crafted and suits the tone of the story and overall direction. I will go a bit more in depth about the world itself in the later narrative section. How's the voice acting? When you have Mark Hamill as Joker and Kevin Conroy, you already know that they're going to kill the roles, and those two are just powerhouses when it comes to Batman content as well as other things, but they are without a doubt the standout in terms of performances naturally, as they do have most of the scenes, and well, the script is basically dedicated to them both, with Joker mainly being on a screen most of the time until towards the end, so he does get a lot of monologues, a lot of good lines, so that's always fun to see. Other characters like Harley Quinn, Killer Croc and Scarecrow all get significantly less time to develop, but the performances are still great. Killer Croc has a great voice, and if I was Batman, I'd drop the gadgets and attempt to talk, because there's no way I'm taking that guy on. Scarecrow explores Bruce psychologically, as he should, and the voice actor who plays him did a great job with the character. The one thing I want to get across is that Batman Arkham Asylum is extremely consistent story-wise. Everything in here feels like it should be there, and there is no way you could tell the story without it, and while the story may not be the best, it was executed almost perfectly in terms of tone, performances, visuals, and just overall vibe. Let's talk about some gameplay. If you are enjoying this video, remember to give it a like to let me know. Batman Arkham Asylum immediately became popular the moment people experienced the Arkham free flow combat, and I can't blame them. This system has been copied by so many franchises since its inception, and it's easy to see why. This combat system is extremely fun and, dare I say it, make you feel like Batman. It had weight, impact, and most importantly, it felt like you're in full control despite the incredible animations for the time. The stealth, while not the most in-depth, offered so much more than any other superhero game, providing a new kind of stealth experience that isn't about hiding from enemies necessarily, but making them fear you by taking them out one by one while being unseen. You aren't hiding, but stalking, and that is my kind of stealth gameplay that I enjoy, so it feels so damn good to pull it off most of the time. Exploration, however, is a bit generic, but there isn't really much you can do with the world Rocksteady created, but what they did do was the best option. Instead of travelling around a giant open world, you slowly traverse different environments, offering fresh new looks and aesthetics, avoiding repetitiveness while offering different puzzles to get to those Riddler trophies. However, there is a cost to that, and that's the fact there is no side missions in this game apart from collecting Riddler trophies or looking for Easter eggs, so if side missions are important to you, Arkham Asylum may not be for you. There are a bunch of different puzzles, riddles, and dangerous places to explore, keeping you invested in the gameplay loop and in turn the story, and there are definitely some standouts like Killer Croc's lair. I won't spoil too much, but it's nerve-wracking to slowly walk across pallets knowing at any second a giant croc-like monster can start charging you, ready to make you his snack. Arkham Asylum easily has some of the most memorable missions in the franchise, so the lack of open world in the traditional sense really helps Arkham Asylum to stay on the road and not crash and burn. The boss fights are unfortunately not great. It's not the worst in the franchise that goes to Arkham Knight, but the fights are definitely lacking, which sucks to say, but it is true. Other than Scarecrow and Killer Croc, every boss fight either has you fighting waves of enemies while the big villain charges you with one or two different attacks you can't counter, or have you spamming batarangs to weaken them while also fighting off waves of enemies. It is strange that the studio worked so hard on the free flow combat system and let the boss fights be so lackluster, making them feel more like gameplay filler to extend the length of the story. So the boss fights are really the only thing that can ruin the consistency of the gameplay. So if boss fights are important to you, I wouldn't say don't buy Batman Arkham Asylum because of it, but expect very generic bosses. It's one of the negatives. There are a bunch of gadgets for you to use as well. While there aren't as many gadgets compared to the Arkham sequels, there is more than enough for the encounters to play out differently, so the game lives or dies based on your creativity if you get bored easily. Over the course of the game, enemies do vary a bit, and other gameplay mechanics get added to make your stealth experience a bit more intense and fast paced, which also helps with keeping things fresh. Skill tree is here and provides enough skills over the game to keep things interesting, but compared to the sequels, there just isn't a lot. That's the best way to describe the game in terms of gameplay. Arkham Asylum is just the foundation in terms of gameplay. The sequels will always be better in gameplay, as this was really just a rehearsal compared to the sequels. Overall, the gameplay here is a strong foundation for the sequels to improve on, and is more than enough to keep things interesting throughout Arkham Asylum's length, and really makes you feel like a crazy guy who decided to dress as a bat because his parents got shot. This section will mainly be about the script and overall direction, because I think it deserves a mention. Batman Arkham Asylum changed the industry's view on superhero games and the stories they can tell, without a doubt, and the script that was made for Arkham Asylum had a massive effect. We'd never seen a superhero story explore trauma like the Scarecrow sequences in the gaming industry. It was often half-assed, and I had to mention it. The script excels with the characters that are used, and I genuinely think provides some great, sometimes better than the moments from the films like Joker's monologues and the exploration of Bruce's psyche through the Scarecrow sections, showing Bruce's trauma through playable sections and illusions. It's just something we never really saw for a superhero game, and I just think it has to be commended. Rocksteady took a massive risk to go as dark as they did, especially when there's this big moment to get a reputation in the industry that isn't known for doing really dark stories most of the time. Sure, Arkham Asylum has been heavily overshadowed by its sequels like Arkham City, as well as games like Spider-Man, but Arkham Asylum really stuck to the gritty dark tone, and it excels because of it. That goes for direction as well. Without a consistent direction or vision, Arkham Asylum could have been an absolute disaster, but it really worked out. It's not perfect, but it's good enough, and the issues are fairly minor, like length of story and slightly basic plot points like a typical villain plan and basic scenarios, but overall I think it's great. I absolutely think you should buy Batman Arkham Asylum in 2021, and it still remains as one of the best superhero games you can get in the industry today. Thank you for watching.